Well, we can talk some more now about the Pandora papers, those financial documents that were leaked by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, which says the new trove of files were linked to dozens of current and former national leaders and amount of the biggest leak of offshore data in history. One man who can give us some answers about, the verification of the alleged documents and, the files that were obtained is Nicholas Ibekwe. He is the head of investigations at Premium Times Nigeria. Nicholas, thank you for joining me on the program. Nicholas, thank you for joining me on The World Today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Amaka. Thank you for having me.
Great. So what triggered interest in this investigation?
Well, I mean, the investigation really is more of a leak. Is the third itinerary in the whole leak that we've had in recent time. So we've had the Panama Papers, we've had the Paradise Papers, and now we have the Pandora Papers. But and all three have been led by the ICIJ. The ICIJ is the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. So this is basically people giving us files of secret files of some of the most powerful and wealthy people across the world, and where they hide their wealth in offshore, how they probably evade taxes, how they hide properties. It involves celebrities, it involves known criminals. It also involves politicians and people who are politically connected as well. So we have a lot of PEP, politically exposed persons, who their names and their secret files have been kept in these offshore providers. So it was a file that was retrieved from about 11 offshore providers across different jurisdictions. So, but mostly they are from the BVI, from Panama, from Bahamas, and even from the USA, because a part of the USA, also a place like Delaware is also known for providing tax haven facilities and shell companies as well. So that is how the whole investigation came about.
To arrive at, the results of the investigation. Over what period of time did this take place?
Well, yeah, we have been working on this for 2 years. I mean, those of us in the Nigerian team, Premium Times is the only Nigerian newspaper who is involved, because we've had we participated previously in both the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers as well. So we've had a series of meetings. Even some of the meetings took us out of this country. We've been going through troves and troves and troves of documents. But the whole thing is just done. So you have to go in there and basically digitally, you're looking for a needle in a haystack, so to speak. So we have to start looking for Nigerian specific files, because sometimes they're not separated and you have to keep using the search function and bringing them. When you get the files, you have to start looking at adding context to it, trying to find out who are these people and all of that. So we are working on a lot of trove of documents. We are looking at Nigerians who have hidden, who have set up offshore shell companies to buy properties in the UK. We're looking at about 200 plus properties worth, several millions of pounds of Nigerian owned property. Some of these properties have also attracted law enforcement interest. We are looking at clergymen, non-clergymen who basically also have offshore company with their families. We are looking at politicians and politically connected. We are looking at a former top judge, a former top judge of this country, who also have offshore facilities. We are looking at businessmen also, businessmen who have been linked to certain people who have been accused of corruption and all of that, who are buying series of properties over a short period of time. So these are the things that we are basically trying to look at. We're basically trying to put out there. People may ask me, why are you doing this? There's three reasons why we have to do this. First is that while the offshore is technically not illegal, for instance, in Nigeria, it's not illegal to own an offshore company. If you're a private citizen, it's not illegal. It's not illegal. But if you are a public officer, you are not allowed to. I mean, if you own an offshore company, first you have to declare it in your code of conduct form, a bureau form. Most of the people we look at didn't declare that they are these assets. You have to resign as a director. Many of them didn't resign as director. We also found out a lot of governors and ex-governors have foreign accounts. It's against the Nigerian constitution that prohibits this specifically and says you cannot own foreign accounts. But apart from that, there's also the issue of tax avoidance. People do all of this offshore thing to avoid paying their fair share of taxes to the country. And if politicians are doing this, you begin to wonder what they expect of the ordinary people. Then again, lastly, it's also the case of inequality. We have a few people who have stored billions of naira, trillions of naira, even in trusts, in offshore companies. Why most of the companies are a lot of the population in the country are basically living in less than $2 in a day. Why would a politician have so much money stored somewhere without any verifiable means of income that would lead to all of that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I do understand, the driving force behind, this investigation, and it's quite revealing. Although these are allegations, and global leaders and politicians, some of them have begun to react, to these allegations. We won't discuss, of course, their responses yet. But how different is this from the Panama Papers were leaked in 2016? You say that you were also involved in that. I mean, your organization was also involved, in the 2016 Panama Papers. So how different is this from that?
Well, it's different first, it's in the scale. We are looking at 11 up to 12 million files here. We're looking at 600 journalists across 120 newsrooms across the world working on this. We're looking at politicians in over 90 countries. Look at that. So the scale this is the biggest collaborative investigation in the history of man, if you want to, if you allow me to use that. So it is huge. It is in that instance, and even if you look at the number of time used, allowed for different newsrooms to get involved in this and begin to go into this trove of documents and bring them out and analyze them and call them and all of that. So in that, I mean, alone tells you how huge this is. So that is the difference between this, and Panama. And again, for the Panama paper, we just talk about only one offshore provider, which is Mossack Fonseca in the city of Panama. That's why it's called the Panama Papers. Here we have 11 different offshore providers from different jurisdictions. So so the scale alone is the immediate thing that comes to mind to tell you that that's how it's different from the Panama Papers.
Nicholas, thank you. Thank you so much. And quite revealing, these documents we're still reading them, and so much information is still coming out of this. So thank you again for joining us on The World today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amaka. Nice having me.
Let's just recap what we've been talking about all day, which is the major story on major news networks around the world, which is the reports from the Pandora Papers published by several news organizations on Sunday that allege world leaders secretly stored wealth in different accounts across the world. The dump of almost 12 million records comes 5 years after the leak known as the Panama Papers, which exposed how money was hidden by the wealthy in ways undetectable by law enforcement agencies. As we heard from Nicholas, it spanned 2 years of digging through financial documents and, this investigation by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, troves of files linked to dozens of current and former national leaders and amounting to the biggest leak of offshore data in history. These are all allegations. Some world leaders have begun to react to the information, as you know, they're being indicted in this report. Some world leaders, such as the Jordanian royal palace, says the king's properties are no secret and were used during official visits. Some are also used during private visits. The Kremlin says it sees no evidence implicating the president's inner circle, despite allegations contrary to the contrary from the news organizations. Nicholas did say that this, of course, the result of this is the information we're getting, which is troves and millions of dollars stored up in different offshore accounts across the world.